The nursery smelled of rejection. Every servant in the castle knew it. Every wolf who passed that corridor could sense the wrongness radiating from behind those doors. Inside, a baby cried for a father who refused to hold him, a king who looked upon his own flesh and blood with nothing but revulsion. Alpha King Theron of Keldra had everything: power, wealth, a kingdom that trembled at his name. But when his son was born, when they placed the infant in his arms, something shattered. He recoiled as if burned. "This is not mine," he declared. "I feel nothing. No bond, no recognition. Take it away." The queen was found dead, they said. The king's heart died with her. That was the story everyone believed. Everyone except one. Marin scrubbed floors and emptied chamber pots. She kept her head down and her mouth shut. She was nobody. Just another nameless servant in a castle full of them. But every night, when the corridors went silent, she crept to the nursery door and listened to her son cry. Because the king's rejected child was hers. And the queen who supposedly died was not dead at all. She was on her knees, washing his floors, watching him despise the baby they had created together. All because of a spell so dark, so complete, that it had erased her from his very soul. Marin had survived the assassination. She had crawled back from the edge of death. And now she would discover who had stolen her mate, her life, and her son's birthright. Even if it killed her. The wailing had been going on for 3 hours. Marin pressed herself against the stone wall of the servants' corridor, her fingers white-knuckled around the handle of her mop bucket. The sound cut through her like a blade. She knew that voice. She knew the particular pitch of his distress, the exact moment when exhaustion would pull him into fitful silence. She knew because she had carried him for 9 months, because she had held him for exactly 11 seconds before they ripped him from her arms and left her for dead. "Poor little wretch," muttered Helda, the head cook, as she passed. "Third nursemaid this month. The child screams day and night, and the king looks at that baby like it's something rotting." Marin said nothing. She had learned to say nothing. "They say the queen's death broke something in him," Helda continued. "But I don't know. There's something else wrong. Something that doesn't smell right." Marin took her meaning. She took it and buried it deep where all her other secrets lived. It had been 4 months since her supposed death. 4 months of hiding in plain sight, disguised by nothing more than servants' rags and a face no one looked at twice. She had been Queen Marin of Keldra for 2 years before the attack. 2 years of loving Theron with everything she had. The night of the birth, hooded figures had dragged her from the birthing bed while she was still bleeding. They had carried her to the cliffs beyond the castle, cut her throat, and thrown her into the sea. They had not cut deep enough. A fisherman's widow had found her washed up on a rocky shore, more dead than alive. When she finally returned to the capital disguised as a refugee, she learned that a body had been recovered. Some poor drowned woman dressed in her clothes. There had been a funeral. The king had wept. And then, within weeks, he had begun rejecting their child. Dark magic. It had to be. Nothing else could explain how the man who had once kissed her pregnant belly every night now looked at that same child with disgust. The sound of heavy boots made her press deeper into the shadows. A moment later, King Theron strode past, flanked by 2 guards, moving toward the nursery. Marin followed through a servant's passage. Through a crack in the wall, she watched her husband enter the nursery. He was still beautiful. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes the color of a winter storm. She remembered the warmth of him, the way he had held her. Now those eyes held nothing but ice. The nursemaid fled at his command. Theron approached the cradle where their son screamed, his tiny fists flailing. "Why?" Theron murmured, and Marin heard something almost like pain in his voice. "Why can't I feel anything?" He reached toward the cradle. Marin held her breath. Theron's hand stopped inches from the baby's cheek. No, he said, pulling back. Nothing. His jaw clenched. Another man's child. That's the only explanation. I'll have the council investigate. Blood tests. Lineage magic. Marin's chest constricted. If Theron ordered lineage magic, it would prove the child was his, which meant whoever had cast the spell would know it was failing. They would try to kill her son. The opportunity came the next morning. Helda announced that Bess, the nursemaid, had quit during the night. Marin volunteered immediately. Lord Valdric handles staffing, Helda said, eyes narrowing. You sure about this? Valdric. The name landed like a stone in Marin's chest. Theron's chief advisor. His half-brother. The man who had always watched her with something unreadable in his eyes. The advisor's office was in the East Tower. Valdric sat behind a massive desk, his silver-streaked hair pulled back from a face that might have been handsome if not for the coldness in it. The new scrub maid, he said without looking up, refugee, no family, no references, and you want to care for the prince no one else will touch. I need the wages, my lord. Valdric's pale eyes swept over her with unsettling thoroughness. She kept her gaze down, but not before something flickered across her face. Loss, longing, quickly buried. Valdric tilted his head, studying her with new interest. Very well. Report at sunset. He paused. If you notice anything unusual, report directly to me. Not the king. To me. Understood? Understood, my lord. She was almost to the door when he spoke again. What did you say your name was? Wren, my lord. Just Wren. Welcome to the nursery, Wren. I do hope you last longer than the others. The nursery was cold. Not natural cold, but something deeper. Something that seeped into the bones. But then Marin saw the cradle, and nothing else mattered. She crossed the room and lifted her son for the first time since those 11 stolen seconds. He was heavier than she expected. Warmer. Real. Hello, my love, she whispered, her voice cracking. Mama's here. Mama's finally here. The baby made a small sound, almost like recognition. His tiny hand found her finger and gripped it. She held him until her arms ached. Then she began to explore the room. Protective charms hung from the doorframe, worthless trinkets. Salt lines beneath the windows, broken and scattered. But beneath these nervous protections, Marin sensed something else. Something layered and deliberate. She pressed her palm against the wall and closed her eyes. As a child, before manifesting as a wolf, Marin had shown other gifts. Sensitivity to magical residue. The ability to feel where power had been worked. Those gifts had saved her life on the cliff, letting her sense the killing blow before it landed. Now they told her something else. The nursery was saturated in dark magic, layer upon layer of spellwork, pulsing with the same signature. Someone was actively maintaining this spell, feeding it power regularly. This wasn't a one-time curse. This was ongoing imprisonment. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. A young woman with copper hair entered, carrying a tray. I'm Cassia, she said quietly. Kitchen staff, can I tell you something I probably shouldn't? Marin nodded. The last nursemaid, Bess? She didn't quit. I saw Valdric's guards carrying her out before dawn. She was unconscious. Maybe dead. Cassia's freckles stood out against her pale skin. Something evil is happening in this castle. The king used to be kind. Now he's empty. Like someone scooped out everything that made him human. She pressed a small vial into Marin's palm. Revealing tincture. My grandmother was a hedge witch. 3 drops on any surface will show traces of magical tampering. Why give this to me? Because you actually care about that baby. And someone needs to. Before Marin could respond, heavy footsteps echoed outside. The door swung open. King Theron stepped into the room, his winter eyes finding her immediately. You're the new one, the volunteer. He moved closer. Look at me. Slowly, Marin raised her face to meet her husband's gaze. Recognition. She braced for recognition. Theron studied her face for a long moment. His brow furrowed, as if trying to remember a dream that kept slipping away. Then his expression hardened. "You have a familiar look," he said coldly, "but I suppose all servants blend together." He turned toward the cradle. "Keep it alive, that's all I require." The door closed behind him, and Marin sat motionless, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. He had looked at her face and seen nothing. The spell was that complete. 3 nights passed before Theron returned. Marin had established a routine. She fed the baby with goat's milk, bathed him in lavender water, and held him for hours singing lullabies in the old tongue. And slowly, miraculously, he stopped screaming. The change did not go unnoticed. "What witchcraft are you working?" Helda demanded. "Lord Valdric has been asking about you. Watch yourself, girl." That night, Marin was rocking the baby by the window when the door opened without warning. Theron stood in the doorway, dressed in simple sleep clothes, his feet bare, his hair disheveled. "I couldn't sleep," he said flatly. "I never can anymore." He moved toward the window, staring at the moonlit grounds. "They think I'm cruel, a monster who hates his own child." "And are you?" The words escaped before she could stop them. Anger flashed across his features, then faded into exhaustion. "I don't know what I am. There's a hollow place inside me. It appeared the night my wife died, and it's been growing ever since, swallowing everything." "Perhaps it's grief," Marin offered softly. "Or perhaps I'm simply broken. Perhaps she was the only thing holding the pieces together." The baby stirred, making a small sound. Theron's gaze dropped to the bundle. "He's quiet with you," he observed. "He just needed someone to hold him properly. I held him when he was born. I held him and felt nothing." His voice cracked. "What kind of father feels nothing for his own child?" "The feeling you describe, the hollowness, it sounds like something taken from you. Not lost. Stolen." Theron went still. "What do you mean?" "Love doesn't simply vanish. Bonds don't disappear. If you truly loved your wife, the absence suggests interference. Have you considered that someone did this to you?" He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping inches from her. "Who are you? You speak like a woman who knows more than she should." "I'm no one, Your Majesty. Just a servant with eyes." "No." He shook his head. "There's something about you. Something familiar." His hand rose as if to touch her face. The baby chose that moment to cry. Theron jerked back, the spell reasserting itself, walls slamming into place behind his eyes. "Forget this conversation happened," he said coldly, and was gone, but Marin stood trembling in the moonlight. For just a moment, he had almost seen her, almost recognized her. The magic could be broken, and whoever was maintaining it would soon realize their work was failing. The revealing tincture showed her what she had already suspected. 3 drops on the stone floor beside the cradle produced a sickly green glow, illuminating patterns Marin hadn't seen before. Lines of power forming a complex web that converged directly beneath where her son slept. The baby was the anchor. The lines continued through the floor, spreading outward toward the east tower, Valdric's tower. Over the next 3 nights, Marin mapped the castle's magical contamination. The spell touched every part of the castle, every stone, every inhabitant, but its heart was in the east tower. On the 4th night, she made her move. She found an entrance behind a crumbling tapestry, a narrow staircase that spiraled upward through the tower's walls, thick with dust. No one had used this path in decades. The passage ended at a wooden panel. Marin pushed it open and stepped into a room that made her stomach turn. Candles burned in a circle, black wax pooling beneath them. Symbols had been painted on the stones in something dark and rust-colored. And in the center stood a pedestal holding a glass sphere filled with swirling silver mist, soul essence, captured and contained. Theron's love for her, his love for their son, all of it ripped from his spirit and imprisoned. Admiring my work? She spun around. Valdric stood in the doorway, smiling. Did you think I wouldn't notice you creeping around my tower? That flicker on your face when we first met. The longing you tried to hide. I suspected then. Only one woman would show such devotion to a rejected prince. You tried to kill me, Marin breathed. I succeeded in killing you, or so I thought. He shook his head. Clearly, I need better assassins. Why? He trusted you. He loved you. Loved me? Valdric's expression darkened. He pitied me. The bastard half-brother, always second best. Our father gave him everything. And what did I get? The privilege of watching. So you stole his wife? His son? His ability to feel? I freed him from weakness. He gestured at the sphere. Theron is a better king now. Colder. Harder. And soon he'll be unnecessary. When the council declares the heir unfit, they'll need a regent. He withdrew a knife, the blade gleaming with sickly green light. But none of that matters now. This time, I'll make sure you stay dead. He lunged. Marin dove sideways. The knife sliced through the air where her throat had been. Touching that sphere would be unwise, Valdric said, blocking her path. The containment is fragile. Break it improperly and the essence dissipates. Theron remains hollow forever. Checkmate. The door behind Valdric creaked. Uncle. A cold, familiar voice. Step away from her. Theron stood in the doorway, sword drawn. When the fragments started returning, when I began to suspect, I told Grand Counselor Harwick everything. I had Mistress Orenna, the court witch, examine the council members. She found compulsion spells woven through their thoughts. Valdric's composure cracked. You don't deserve to remember her. You made me a monster. Theron's voice rose. Step away from the woman. You still don't recognize her, do you? Your mate could stand 3 feet away and you'd feel nothing. Theron looked at Marin, struggling against invisible chains. Who are you? I'm the woman you loved until death. The mother of your son. The queen they tried to murder. That's impossible. Marin is dead. Look at me, Theron. Feel whatever fragment of our bond remains. You know me. For one endless moment, nothing happened. Then Theron's sword clattered to the floor. Marin? The word came out broken. Marin. Valdric moved, knife flashing toward the sphere. Marin slammed into his side. The knife sliced across her arm instead. She grabbed the sphere and hurled it at the floor. Glass exploded. Silver mist erupted upward, found Theron, and slammed into his chest. He screamed. Agony and ecstasy twisted together, years of stolen emotions flooding back instantly. His body convulsed, his hands clawed at his chest. You've killed him, Valdric snarled. A human mind can't process that much emotion at once. Marin ran to where Theron had collapsed, cradling his head. Hold on to me. Follow my voice back. Marin? Her name was a ragged sob. Oh gods. I felt nothing at my own wife's funeral. What kind of monster? You weren't a monster. You were a victim. Guards burst through the door. Grand Counselor Harwick took in the scene and ordered Valdric confined immediately. Theron's arms wrapped around her, crushing, desperate. I couldn't feel you. For months. I reached for you in my sleep and found nothing. I know. She pressed her forehead to his. But we're free now. The first sign that something was wrong came 3 days later. Marin woke to find Theron convulsing beside her. His body was rigid, his skin burning with actual heat, as if fire lived beneath his flesh. She dragged him to Mistress Orenna, the court witch, who had helped expose Valdric's compulsions. The old woman examined him thoroughly, her expression growing grave. There was a failsafe, Orenna said finally. The soul essence was meant to be drained slowly, feeding the caster's power over years. The sudden return has destabilized the king's spirit. His soul is overflowing. If we don't stabilize him, he'll burn alive from within. How long? 3 days. Marin's world tilted. There must be something. The mate bond. If you fully open it, not just emotional, but spiritual, you could absorb some of the excess essence. But opening a bond that completely means merging your souls. His pain becomes your pain. His death becomes yours. Then we'll do it. Marin, no. Theron struggled to sit up. I won't let you risk yourself. If something goes wrong, our son grows up an orphan either way. But if it works, he has both parents. She knelt before him. Together? His trembling hands cupped her face. Together. The ritual chamber had been cleared of everything except a low platform surrounded by salt and silver. Candles burned at the cardinal points. Marin and Theron lay facing each other, hands clasped. The bond cracked open. Marin gasped as Theron's consciousness flooded into her. Memories, experiences, and the shape of his thoughts. She felt his childhood loneliness, the day he first saw her, the joy when he held their son, then the horrifying moment when that joy simply vanished. She felt his months of emptiness, the self-loathing, the conviction that he was broken beyond repair. Theron received her memories in turn, the terror of the assassination, the agony of recovery, the desperate determination that had driven her back. I never stopped, she sent through the bond. Neither did I, he replied. Even when I couldn't remember why. The excess essence began to flow. It hurt, like liquid fire pouring through her veins. Marin heard herself screaming, heard Theron screaming with her. But she didn't let go. The fire peaked and began to ebb. Orenna approached cautiously. A smile broke across her face. It worked. The essence has stabilized. And our son needs a proper name, Marin whispered. He's been waiting for his father. Theron's breath caught. Corvin, he said softly. After my mother. She was the only one who ever made my father feel anything. Prince Corvin of Keldra. Marin smiled through her tears. Perfect. Theron pulled her into his arms. You saved me. Again. We saved each other. That's what mates do. The great hall had been transformed into a court of judgment. Theron sat on the throne, Marin at his side. They had announced her survival the day before, and the kingdom was still reeling. Valdric was dragged in by 4 guards, his fine clothes replaced by prisoners' rags. But his pale eyes burned with undimmed hatred. Lord Valdric of Keldra, Grand Counselor Harwick announced, you are charged with high treason, attempted regicide, magical assault, and attempted murder. How do you plead? Valdric laughed. Everything I did for this kingdom. Theron was weak. I made him stronger. You made him a monster, Marin said. I made him a king. Valdric's eyes snapped to her. How long before his soft heart brings Keldra to its knees? Theron descended the steps. You stole my wife, my son, my very capacity for love, and you dare call me weak? Half the lords in this room agreed with me. I just had the courage to act. Whatever doubts existed were planted by your manipulations, Harwick said. Mistress Orenna found compulsion residue in our minds. None of us chose to question the king. Valdric of Keldra, Theron said. The sentence is death. Valdric's composure cracked. You wouldn't. I'm your brother. You ceased being my brother the moment you stole my mate and left her for dead. As guards dragged him away, Valdric twisted in their grip. This isn't over. You think you've won? There are others. The doors slammed shut. Theron stood motionless. I sentenced my own brother to death. You sentenced a traitor, Marin murmured. Justice isn't always kind, but it's necessary. That night they lay together, Corvin sleeping in a cradle beside their bed. Valdric mentioned others who shared his views. Marin said quietly, "I know. Harwick is already investigating. We'll root out every last conspirator." Theron pulled her closer. "But tonight, I just want to hold my family." Valdric was executed at dawn. Marin watched. She needed to see it end. In the weeks that followed, the kingdom transformed. The council was purged. New advisors were appointed. Mistress Orenna was elevated to royal mage, tasked with creating wards against future magical attacks. And Cassia, the kitchen maid, who had given Marin the revealing tincture, was promoted to lady-in-waiting. Harwick's investigation uncovered 3 minor lords who had knowingly assisted Valdric. They were stripped of titles and lands. The others Valdric had threatened proved to be nothing more than desperate bluster, co-conspirators too cowardly to act without him. The nursery was cleansed of dark magic. The spells that had anchored Theron's torment were dismantled stone by stone. And finally, in a ceremony before the entire court, Prince Corvin was formally named heir to the throne. Theron held his son throughout the ceremony, weeping openly without shame. Every time the baby made a sound, the king looked down at him with wonder, as if still unable to believe he could feel this love. "I have something to ask you," Theron said that evening, finding Marin in the royal gardens. "What is it?" "Rule with me, not as a figurehead but as a true co-regent. You saw through Valdric when I was blind. You fought for our son when I couldn't. I trust your judgment more than my own." Marin felt warmth bloom in her chest. "Yes, of course yes." He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. 6 months later, the gardens were in full bloom. Marin sat on a blanket beneath an ancient oak, watching Corvin take his first unsteady steps across the grass. He was 10 months old now, with his father's stubborn chin and his mother's fierce amber eyes. "Come on, little wolf," Theron encouraged, arms outstretched. "Come to Papa." Corvin giggled and lurched forward. He made it 3 steps before tumbling onto his bottom. Instead of crying, he looked up at his father with such pure indignation that both parents burst out laughing. "Definitely your son," Marin said. "That look that says, 'How dare gravity inconvenience me?'" Theron scooped him up, blowing raspberries against the baby's belly until Corvin shrieked with delight. So much had changed. Valdric was dead. The conspirators were punished. The kingdom was healing. "I've been thinking," Theron said, settling beside her with Corvin in his lap, "about what kind of kingdom I want him to inherit. And that Valdric was right about one thing. I was weak. Not because I loved you, but because I was so afraid of losing that love that I missed what was happening under my nose." He met her eyes. "I need to be better, vigilant, and I need you beside me, not just as my queen, but as my partner." Marin leaned against his shoulder. "We're going to have our hands full when he's older. I can't wait." A servant approached. "Your Majesties, the delegation from Vestora has arrived." Theron sighed. "Duty calls?" Before Marin could turn away, he caught her hand. "I love you," he said. "I should have said it every day, but I'm saying it now, and I'll keep saying it until the words lose all meaning. I love you too." She smiled at this man who had been her mate, her stranger, and her partner across the strangest journey of her life. "I never stopped. I know." He kissed her knuckles. "I felt it. Through all of it, I felt it. I just didn't know what it was. And now? Now I know exactly what it is." He released her hand. "It's everything." Marin walked back toward the castle, her son warm against her heart, her mate's love humming through their bond. They had been broken, shattered, scattered across months of pain and dark magic. And yet, somehow, they had found their way back to each other. Not despite the scars, but through them. Stronger for having been broken, more grateful for having lost. The Alpha King had rejected his own son's scent, but a maid had discovered the dark spell. And in the end, love had proven stronger than any magic designed to destroy it. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it and would like to support the channel, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. I always read them, and they mean more than you know.